Hey, what's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're talking about the Cold Steel Mini Tuff Lite, which is a compact, budget-friendly knife from Cold Steel. Super solid overall. I picked this up on Amazon about 8 months ago for $25, and you'll still find it in that price range, 25 to 30, depending on which color you choose, or if you go with the plain edge or the serrated edge. And so pretty budget conscious option. And I really picked it up as kind of a last minute add-on because I wanted to check out the Triad lock. I didn't have any knives that had a Triad lock, and so figured I'd check it out. I had heard, it's the strongest lock in the industry for years, and so definitely wanted to check one out. So with that said, this is the Mini Tuff Lite, implying the existence of a full-size version, and there is. If this is a little bit small for you, there's a full-size Tuff Lite available. Don't have that one for size comparison here, but definitely something that's out there. And mentioning the size on this one, fully deployed, it's only 5 inches long, which is pretty short knife overall, and surprisingly ergonomic for its tiny size. And a couple of reasons for that. So we have a 3-inch handle, which is pretty hard to make an ergonomic knife with 3 inches or even less than 3 inches in the handle. But this one I'm able to get a full 4-finger grip if I choke up, or more commonly I've spread out a little bit more and have my pinky hanging off, but still ultra secure in there. You can choke up really nicely on this, get a lot of different grips that are very comfortable, and so all the ergonomics on here are excellent. No hot spots whatsoever for me, and so that's super impressive for its size. Now there is a huge trade-off to that, and that is that in order to achieve that, they cannibalized a lot of this 2-inch blade with this finger choil, and so 2 inches already is a pretty short blade. In this case, since a lot of that's being cannibalized by that finger choil, also a tiny sharpening choil, we get 1.3 inches of cutting edge, so not much whatsoever. Now depending on your use case, that's going to be just fine in a lot of cases. If you're not planning on using this for food prep or bushcrafting, you're probably going to be okay. In fact, it really excels at utility cuts and pull cuts and stuff like that. And so because of that, I think the best comparison is probably a utility knife. And so we have one here. I chose this one specifically because this one exposes about half of the blade. Sometimes you have utility knives that expose even less, maybe up to about here. This one exposes a little bit more, but you can see the Mini Tuff Lite still has more cutting edge. It completely eclipses it if you put it in front of there, so you still do get more cutting edge. And also that Wharncliffe shape on this blade means that we have a very similar profile to what you see on a utility blade. In fact, it lines up almost exactly with that tip. And so if you like a utility knife and you're just looking for something a little bit more ergonomic, obviously you're not going to be able to change the blades on this one, but it is more ergonomic than probably any utility knife that I have, and it does a great job. 4116 stainless German steel, so it should be pretty easy to sharpen back up too. Came nice and sharp, has a hollow grind on here, so nice and slicey. And overall, really good for certain tasks. For me, that means that I have a lot of these knives that just kind of sit around the house in certain places, and when I get a package, wherever I am opening it at, I'll grab that knife. And so this is one of those. It doesn't get a ton of pocket time, but it would make an excellent 5th pocket carry, and I have carried it in that capacity, just not a ton. And so looking at that 5th pocket carry, one of the major flaws that's going to be a deal breaker for some is we look at the pocket clip. Right hand only, so non-reversible, and also tip down only, so we don't have a tip up carry. So not a huge deal for me because it's mostly sitting on a desk at this point, and even if I'm carrying it, it's going in the 5th pocket, which I'm not as picky about pocket clips really going in my 5th pocket. And so not a deal breaker for me, but maybe for some. Now, getting into the next one, let's look at the deployment. We have that thumb hole. Works really well for the slow roll. This is not going to be a fidgety knife. So talking about this Triad lock, which is the main reason I picked it up, waited a while to get to it, but functions effectively like a lockback, although you do have to press it a little bit further than you would press a lockback. So a lot of lockbacks, you can kind of half press them and that will disengage the lock and you'll be able to close that blade. In this case, you get a little bit more wiggle, but it's still locked into place until you fully depress that lockback and basically are touching the handle, and then you can freely move. And so that did take a second to get used to. Just it's a little bit more you have to actuate it a little bit more than I'm used to with my other lockbacks, but that's obviously probably a good thing. You know, that Triad locks advertised as being one of the strongest locks in the industry, and so that does make it feel like it's a little bit more secure, having to press that a bit further than you normally would to get it disengaged. But what I noticed before that was actually something that made me question the lock a little bit more, and that is, if we look at blade play on this, there's not really any side-to-side blade play, but you can get up and down blade play pretty easy. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to see it and hear it in the video, and this is not a lot of pressure. And so really easy to get that up and down blade play, which makes the lock feel a little bit less secure. Now, I've really tried to fill this lock. I've done pretty hard spine whacking. I've applied as much pressure as I can with my hand and have not been able to fill this lock. And what I ended up finding was I don't think that the blade play has anything to do with the lock. I think it's just as secure. It's really just kind of an annoying thing more than anything. It's not affecting the safety of the knife. But what it is there's a stop pin in here, and I'm hoping that'll pick up on the camera. I'm not sure if it will or not, but that stop pin is not round, it is D-shaped. And so unless it's perfectly aligned, when you get that blade deployed, you're gonna get some blade play. Now you can take a T6, spin this torque screw until it lines up, and it does pretty much eliminate that blade play. But because it's kind of free spinning, as soon as you open and close it once or twice, the blade play comes right back. And so D-shaped stop pin, but I don't think the hardware is D-shaped in the handle portion of it. And so you can take that out, Loctite it, but it's still just going to be free spinning in there because the portion that goes into the handle is not D-shaped. And so I don't know that there's really a way to eliminate that. I would assume that's got to be a pretty widespread problem, although I'm not 100% sure. Didn't do, you know, this knife has been around for so long, I didn't really do any research, just kind of wanted to check it out. And so not sure if that's like a long known problem and I'm just springing up, beating a dead horse here. But in general, there is some play there. And so if that's a deal breaker for you, definitely keep in mind. I do not think it's affecting the overall safety of this lock though, so that's worth noting. Now, for the size, also extremely lightweight. A lot of that's because we have these polymer handles, which is like a rubbery plastic hybrid. It's super grippy and super lightweight. 1.47 ounces is what this weighed in at, a little bit lower than the web listing actually. And so under 1.5 ounces, and it feels super light in hand. It disappears in your pocket. And so that's a really nice thing. And polymer is really durable as well, so even though this is a plastic, I wouldn't be super worried about this falling apart on you or anything like that. Super durable material. We have a nice lanyard slot here, so you can put a large lanyard on there, nice thick 550 paracord. It doesn't have like a tiny lanyard hole where you can't get anything through. So if you're someone who puts lanyards and beads, that's definitely a nice thing as well. Now this is made in Taiwan, like most cold steel knives, so no problem with that. And you can see the brandings, I don't know, it's a little bit billboard. There's nothing too crazy, I don't notice it that much. You have the mini Tuff Lite right in front of that thumb hole, and then you flip to the other side, you have the cold steel logo, the 4116 stainless, and then that Taiwan print. And so it is actually a decent bit of billboarding on such a small blade, but I think maybe because it's so small, you just don't notice it that much. Now on to the last thing, which can be a major issue, maybe even a safety issue, is that you'll see that when I'm closing this, it's pretty intentional because of that Triad lock. It's not shake shut, it's not drop shutty, and so you do have to intentionally press it closed, and when you do so, it closes perfectly pretty much every time. I've never had an issue that I've noticed at least. And when you pull it out, there's some retention from that Triad lock that's pulling it back into place, and that snaps back in nicely. Now it takes a second longer for that retention to kick in, or a little bit less travel, I guess, for that retention to kick in than is ideal. And so what that means is if you don't get it far enough out, or if you're not pressing this closed, you can open it just a little bit and expose that blade without the retention kicking in, and that blade will be exposed. And so I have pulled it out of that fifth pocket and seen that, and didn't cut myself. It hasn't been an issue, especially because in a fifth pocket, you're not really reaching past your knife and it's tipped down, so you're not pulling it out and stabbing yourself. And so really in that configuration, you're really not in much danger. But in theory, if this is in a main pocket, you're reaching past this, going for your keys, you nudge it on the way out, don't hit that retention point, and that tip is exposed, you can easily scratch yourself. Probably not going to be a super deep cut or anything like that, but still a minor safety issue, and depending on how you plan on carrying it, that could be a big deal. And so that's kind of the biggest issue I have with it, and I'm not sure how widespread that is, if it's just mine. I did see, I think, one of the Amazon reviews mentioning that, but not sure if it's something where Some people have it where if you close it, it's always doing that. For me, it's really, you have to have the right set of circumstances for that blade to be even exposed. And so the way I'm using it, I don't think it'll ever affect me, so I'm not going to bother trying to return it or anything like that. But and would be curious to hear if you have one of these, which of those issues, if you have the stop pin issue with that up and down play, if you have the exposed tip issue where the retention doesn't kick in until it travels a certain amount, and so you have that exposed tip. But for me, again, both of them are really kind of minor issues with how I'm using it. And so overall, a pretty solid option at that price point, but not without its flaws. So definitely keep those in mind if you're looking to pick these up. I will link to it in the description still if you're interested in picking it up. They probably will be affiliate links because these are available a bunch of different places, which help the channel out at no additional cost to you, but not necessarily something that I'm going out and recommending. But it's been around forever. People are going to pick this up if they want it. And I'm not saying, you know, absolutely don't pick it up either. Just want to point out those flaws if it's something that you're looking at. But thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you have one of these, if you've had any of those issues. Let me know what you think about the knife, and anything else that you'd like to comment. Love interacting and replying to those comments, and so always enjoy that. But thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful. And as always, I hope you have a great one. Take care.